I remember my father telling me this story when I was a young boy about money. He said, regardless of the denomination, pluck. That's what he called me, pluck. Regardless of the denomination, pluck. We give you money, you take it and you throw it. Because you are all about getting to that playground. All about having fun. All about running your mouth. And here I am on a podcast, running my mouth. Not thinking about the money, but thinking about those people who I will impact and bless with the words that I'm speaking right now. What makes you you? Corporations have mission and vision statements. Faith-based organizations have a statement of faith or a statement of beliefs. What do you believe in? What's important to you? Have you actually sat down and thought about crafting a statement that represents your life? In a previous episode, we talked about having a vision board. But what about a mission statement for your life? I told you that my why is to empower people to evolve into their highest self. Not trying to be spooky, not trying to be super spiritual, just basic. We wake up every day and we know that this podcast is all about authenticity. But how can we ever be for real if we don't know who we are? I believe that impacting the lives of others in a positive way and empowering them and improving their lives is why I was put on this planet. I want those people to then plant those seeds of positivity in other people's lives. And I'm dedicated to that cause. I've dedicated my life to that mission. And I've even put it to writing. I don't know if you've heard that TED Talk by Simon Sinek, the gentleman that talks about finding your why, starting with why. But if you haven't, I'd suggest that everybody have a look at that because it's powerful. It forces you to think back to who you were as a young boy or girl. I remember being young and diagnosed with dyslexia, how difficult it was for me to navigate reading situations. Social situations had no problem. Too easy. When I actually had to read, I had to manipulate situations oftentimes so that I didn't have to read out loud. Because I didn't want to be perceived as the dumb kid. The kid who stumbled. The kid who made you wait to go to recess. The kid who just wasn't with the flow. I wanted to fit in. Be a part of the crowd. Isn't it ironic that now, as an adult, that's the thing that typically holds you back as an entrepreneur, because authenticity automatically puts you in a class of your own. What are the things that hold us back from self-discovery? If finding purpose, figuring out who I am at my core would liberate me, right, and set me on this path to abundance and living my best life and doing my thing, why would you not want to do that? Because it's uncomfortable. When you were a little boy or girl, what was the thing that brought you joy? What was the thing that gave you fulfillment? What was the thing that made you feel like you before you grew up and realized that money was a thing? I remember my father telling me this story when I was a young boy about money. He said, regardless of the denomination, pluck. That's what he called me, pluck. We give you money, you take it and you throw it. Because you are all about getting to that playground. All about having fun. All about running your mouth. And here I am on a podcast, running my mouth. Not thinking about the money, but thinking about those people who I will impact and bless with the words that I'm speaking right now. But it took me 4 decades to figure that out. Because in my life, I thought that climbing a corporate ladder would get me somewhere. But in the pursuit of success and ascending that corporate ladder, I slipped. And it almost cost me my life. Because, I realized that it's not about who people believe I am. It's about me having a core belief system that I could build my life upon that solidifies who I know I am. Let me put that in layman's terms. It's about me putting pen to paper, pencil to pad, figuring out what gives me joy, what energizes me, what I believe in. And that is my modus operandi. That is the thing that I focus my attention on. That's the thing that I get up and am energized by. I suggest writing your vision and making it plain. Writing down what you believe in. Writing down the things that give you... Let's do this. Let's recap. Start over. I suggest doing this. Taking a blank sheet of paper, putting it in front of you, and beginning to write. I enjoy the thing that gives me life. The things that give me life are, or I enjoy doing X and Y and Z. Personally, I enjoy speaking to people. I enjoy being around people. The things that detract are negative energy. People who break people down. People who are critical without cause. Critical, I believe that criticism is good if it is in an effort to improve the individual. But criticizing just to be harmful, see, individuals like that, I don't have a place for them in my life. Because my vision is too big. I have too much at stake. My purpose is bigger than allowing individuals who are critical and unproductive to occupy too much time in my sphere of influence. And so, back to what we were saying. Get a piece of paper. Start writing down the things that you enjoy doing. If I didn't need to make an income, what would I do every day? If I didn't need to wake up and go to my job, where would I go? What would I do? Who would I impact? How would I influence? Would I travel the world? Would I be a public speaker? Would I be a school teacher? Would I teach crafts to kids, or would I teach technology to older people? Because trust me, your answer wouldn't be to just lay in the bed and do nothing. That's called depression. And I've also lived in that mind state before, but that's not optimal. And I know that it's clinical at times, and there may be a rebalancing that needs to take place, so I always recommend therapy. But with God, however, I shouldn't say but, with God, all things are possible. And for me, in my house, we are faith-based people who believe fundamentally that the Word of God is the foundation of what we do. Identity is at the core of everything that we're talking about. Authenticity. How can you know who you are without knowing who you are? How can you know who you are at your core without knowing how you identify? Now, I'm not talking about your pronouns per se. I'm talking about who you are at your core, right? And what brought this episode about is the other day, and I did a blog post about it on I Am Gratney blogger. I'll link it in the description. But the episode was about the uncovering of a murder that had taken place many years ago. And the sister of the person who was doing the podcast, it's a show about a young lady who has a podcast. Basically, she investigates things, almost like a modern Murder, She Wrote, if you will. But she investigates, she writes about it, and she talks about it in her podcast. And in this particular episode, her sister was arrested because the police were trying to put pressure on her to just let the whole thing go, because one of the individuals who was the subject of her investigation happened to be a cop. And so the police was putting pressure on her and her family for her to stop investigating and for her to stop talking about it on the podcast. And so her sister was arrested, right? But when her sister got arrested, she began to be processed. And I don't know if any of you who are listening are familiar with what it means to be processed, but unfortunately I've been on the wrong side of the law quite a few times, and I've had the displeasure of being processed. And in my mind, it went rather quickly. You know, they take your clothes, take your belongings, woo, 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 pat you down, cough, ha, ha, and you're done. But of course, for dramatic effect, in this episode of the Apple Plus series, they used a lot of cinematic effects, of course, because I'm a videographer. I picked up on a lot of things, but as a person watching and experiencing her being processed, I was able to put myself in her shoes, and it brought me to tears, honestly, because the camera pushed into her face, and you saw this tough biker chick, and on her exterior, she looked like, man, this stuff ain't phasing me. They took her earrings. It's like, whatever. They took her jacket, to be expected. They took her wig. Her face cracks a little bit. They panned down to them taking her shoes, taking her jeans, her jean vest, her shirt, her earrings, her rings. I think I said her earrings. I meant her rings. Her bracelets. And by the end of the experience, where they then changed her from her clothes into an orange jumpsuit. Orange is the new black, we're all familiar. She was naked. Naked. Who are we in our nakedness? Can you stand in front of the mirror naked and love what you see? Would you be okay with bearing it all for the world? In Germany, we have saunas, right? And before I got married, I would frequent the saunas, and occasionally I go now, but my wife and I have to go together, and it's a whole thing. But I would love going and being just completely naked. And not for nudity's sake, but for the sake of being honest with myself. Now, I know some of my listeners are going to be cringing at this point, like, oh my God. I'm not talking about public nudity. I'm talking about in a safe space for health purposes, healing purposes, going to a place where you can have a salt bath or honey bath. I've had all kinds of eucalyptus bath or eucalyptus leaf. I'm getting sidetracked, but you get my drift. Naked. What does it feel like to be naked with yourself? Not at a sauna, not being processed into jail, but being honest, true with yourself. Some of us have been lying to ourselves for so long that we don't even know what the truth really is. We don't even know what it means to be authentic. In my book that will be dropping the first week of February, I get real raw with you about being molested at an early age and what it feels like to be unsafe in a situation that you were put in with trusted individuals that at 11 you looked up to, and how those types of situations impacted my life 4 decades later. And only by confronting them head on in a very uncomfortable way, being brought to tears with many therapists, because I've had multiple. In fact, I need to find another one now because it's a whole nother story. But therapy is fantastic, side note, because it allows you to be naked in a safe space. It allows you to look at yourself in a mirror and all your wrinkles and dents, soft parts, firm parts, without comparison, naked and honest. In the beginning, we were naked in the garden. And it was only when we decided that we wanted more out of the life that was given to us than we were prepared to handle. At 11, I wasn't prepared to having sexual experiences. You see, the cognitive dissonance there was a break because I wasn't ready. And as I grew up in life, because I had grown in areas that I shouldn't have, or I was exposed to areas that I shouldn't have before my time, I was messed up, causing a slight mental break. Now I'm living with PTSD because I don't always feel safe. And I'm ready to go at a moment's notice. A friend of mine pointed out to me, he's like, dang, man. Because, you know, we told you about my friend Mike, my best friend. He and I talk every morning, and he's like, you notice everything. Because I heard him rustling. I said, okay, you're at the gate now. He's like, how'd you know that? I was like, because I know. He's like, dang, man, it must be hard to always be on edge like that. Just aware of everything that's going on. And I never thought of it like that. But yeah, I'm always on edge because PTSD is a serious thing, man. PTSD keeps you at your highest level of fight or flight. In my case, fight a lot of times. And it's only by the grace of God and therapy and my meditation practice that I'm not so faithful with, but I'm working on. But when everything is in alignment, when I'm in therapy, when I'm meditating like I should, when I'm reading my Bible like I should, when I'm doing my, because we have a home sauna, this is not what I'm referring to, when I'm doing my sauna regularly, when I'm doing my fitness regimen, when I'm eating right, I am in sync and I'm feeling great. But you know how I'm able to do all of that? Because I know myself well enough to know what it takes for me to operate optimally. And that's what I'm asking you to do. Do you know yourself well enough to operate optimally in the body that you've been given for the time that you're on this earth? And if you don't, you need to get to know yourself. It's okay to ugly cry by yourself. It's okay to scream into the pillow. There's nobody around. It's okay to just be naked. Because you're beautiful. You're beautiful just the way you are. Take time and detox from the gram. Detox from the tube. I know I'm on the gram and the tube and the ticking of the talk and the Twitter. I'm on all of that. But not every day. I have a wonderful app now that I just recently got that allows me to schedule the whole month. And even though you're seeing my post every day somewhere, I'm not doing it. Technology is. Or my Fiverr staff are doing it. But I'm thankful that I'm taking the measures to protect my mind, to protect my peace. Because in order for me to live my authentic self, to continue to grow in faith as I intend to, as I believe God intends me to, I have to put time and attention into taking care of myself, my mentality, and moving forward in grace. Grace. What does that mean? That means being kind to myself, loving myself, not being so daggone hard on myself. I remember I used to rise and grind, king, rise and grind, king, rise every day. Treating my sons like that. But everything ain't about the goddamn rise and grind, man. Rise and be still. Rise and be calm. Rise and be quiet. In peace and tranquility. Your path is set before you to accomplish. Let me repeat that. The things that the things that God has for you, the things that are set before you in your life to accomplish are for you and not for anybody else. The only person that we're up against, the only person that we are in competition with is ourselves. Can I do better today than I did yesterday? Can I achieve more than I did last week? And I'm saying nominally more. It's not about 10xing all the time. If that's your bag and that's what you're about, then by all means. But don't do it in an unhealthy way. Don't do it in a way that breaks you. Because what is it worth to have the assets, right, over the liabilities if you're not mentally, physically, spiritually intact when you get there? Know yourself. When that young lady was released from prison, or from jail rather, she was broken. She was different. She wasn't as confident. Her head wasn't held as high because someone made her feel less than who she was created to be. Was it the fault of the jailer? Maybe. But it was also the fact that that young lady had put so much value on the biker jacket, which she wore as her coat of armor, the wig, which she assigned as a crown and basically saw as a status symbol of who she was in her community. The earrings, the bling, those things held more value than her voice. Those things were more precious to her than her heart to serve. But what could she have been if in all her glory she stood before those jailers naked and proud because she loved herself? My brothers, my sisters, and my friends, I just pray that you leave this episode a little more encouraged and knowing that you can be naked, you can be honest, but you have to know who you are at your core. Because even in your vulnerability, you're still amazing. You're still beautiful, and you're still fearfully and wonderfully crafted with specificity to do a specific thing. But you have to be bold enough to look in the mirror and say, I'm enough. I'm amazing. Look at the wrinkles. Look at the soft and firm places. And just love yourself. Give yourself a little bit of grace and wake up hopeful, joyful, and knowing that each day you get better and more beautiful. And I thank you for listening to the Pretending to Be Me podcast. This is Marcus Gradney, and I'm out.
Just wanna live right, be right, keep on fighting that good fight, 'cause it wasn't for the blood,
wasn't for the blood.
Be where I was,
Yeah,
do right, try to keep fighting that
good fight.
'Cause if it wasn't for the blood, I don't know.
Wasn't for the blood. If it wasn't for the blood, I